What's happening, everyone? My partner's Ian's keeping it real. What's happening, everyone? And welcome to El Chile Boxing Talk. Got the homie with me, Nopal Baxianos, who I also call the heart and soul of the ACP network. And then I got George with Off the Ropes Boxing and MMA, man. We're glad you're here. What's up, fellas?
Good afternoon to everybody.
Yes, indeed.
Hi, everybody.
Well, good, man. You know, we've given our salutations, and let's get into it. We got a lot of stuff to cover, and we thank you all for joining us. But, man, you know, let's kick it off with talking about what happened this last weekend with Tank Davis versus Raleigh Romero. You guys all saw the shot heard around the world. Tank put Raleigh down, and, well, we'll get into the what Tank should do next year in just a second, but I just want a little bit of a breakdown from you guys. What'd you think about the fight in particular and Tank's skill set versus what Romero brought to him? Nopal, what'd you think, brother?
Man, I was super surprised at how careful Raleigh was able to be. You know what I mean? I thought he was going to run out there and just try to go for the knockout, you know, which he could have done. And, you know, there's a possibility he would have been able to get the knockout. But I was also surprised at how careful Haney was. I mean, Tank was. I thought he was going to be a little more aggressive, but you know, he recognized the danger that he was in with Raleigh, and he was looking to land a big shot from the beginning. You know, just careful. He wanted Raleigh to run straight into it. You know, and he was patient enough, and he waited, and he got that. You know, he got that sweet punch that he wanted. You know, but. No fault in Raleigh, man. You know what? He came through for us, bro. He gave a good account of himself, and I'm proud of him still, man. I'm proud to call him a Latino right there, man. Raleigh for president, bro.
You know, that's a great point. You know, I think in all this, you know, I think sometimes we forget that, yeah, man, Raleigh was a Cuban and pretty interesting dynamic, you know, when you think about it, because the style is just a little bit different. I want to give a shout out to A-Rod, who's in the house. Thanks for joining us. JC's here. Thanks for being here, brother. It's good to see you. What'd you think about this fight, man? George?
I pretty much agree. I'm gonna go ahead and I agree with Nopal, man. You know, I think Raleigh showed, you know, that he can be that threat, and not just. I'm not saying like boxing skill wise, but you can tell he had Tank Davis a little uncomfortable in the beginning. You know, I think even though he didn't land anything significant early on, I think just the presence, you can tell Davis didn't want to make a mistake, get knocked out, and then be made fun of because, of course, like we said, on paper, Tank Davis should completely whitewash and outbox Raleigh. But Raleig's power, his presence, you could tell had an effect, had him, you know, thinking twice a little bit. There was like little mistakes too that I was seeing Tank Davis doing, but I think he was. No, I'm not gonna say mistakes. I take that back. I think what he was doing obviously was setting up those shots, and you can see probably in the fifth round is when it looked like he was taking a little bit more chances, where he was putting his chin out there to get hit, but you know he was just fishing Raleigh into where he wanted him, and he got him where he got him, man. And it was a pretty nasty knockout. I heard that Raleigh was asking for his dad. He was asking his dad in the corner, like, you know, when they're walking, when they show him walking down the corridor, he was asking for his hoodie or something like that. So concussed, I believe the dude was concussed. And I, you know, I do agree with what Ellerby said, that he thinks other than Tank, Raleigh could give some guys some problems. I mean, I know that division at 135, it's up there, you know what I mean, with the 147 guys, it's full of talent, but he can definitely be a strong gatekeeper. I've always wanted to see the Ryan Garcia fight years ago, and it still is a little bit intriguing, only because I don't think Garcia has, I guess, the technical skill as Tank Davis. I don't see him being able to set up shots the way Tank Davis did. So that would be an intriguing fight. But overall, you know, Tank Davis won. We know we want to see out of Tank Davis, so good fight for him.
Oh, yeah, that would be an intriguing fight. Plus, as we covered last week, there's some serious beef between them. Raleigh and Ryan Garcia. And if you haven't seen it and you want some serious exclusive Al Chile chisme, go back and watch the last 10 minutes of our last episode. And man, you will get some serious chisme. Want to give a shout out to Nando Yamas, who's in the house, dude. Thanks for joining us, brother. But yeah, man, those great breakdowns. And I agree with a lot of that stuff. I thought that Raleigh made a very good account of himself and he surprised people. And he did what he was set out to do in a way. He said that I will bring it to Tank. He gets hit, so I'm going to bring it to him. When does he not get hit? Although, I got to say, I thought that Tank had a very good game plan going in. It was a mutual conversation as to how the fight was going to go. And I think Tank was allowing, and he even said that in the post-fight press conference, that, he was just kind of waiting to take it in a little bit later, and I felt like Raleigh had his best chances early. When he was connecting and he was having success. On top of that, Tank hadn't made the adjustments, but I thought, and I said this in our group text, by the fourth round, even though Raleigh was still making a good account of himself, you could see the tide turning. You could see Tank making his adjustments, and you could see that the window was closing for Raleigh as far as his ability to kind of win rounds. I didn't anticipate a knockout like that out of nowhere. I was a little surprised by the knockout. Fun to see. But, I thought the fight was a little bit low activity. When you watch the fight in real time, a high-profile fight like this with actual beef is always fun to watch in real time. But as far as the entertainment factor, I don't know if I would ever go back and watch that. A very low activity for lightweights in general. Tank has a little bit, like I said, I don't want to just criticize the dude, but I think he has a little bit of an activity problem. On top of that, too, man, this was just Rolly Romero, right? I mean, it was a good fight, but this Tank's going around calling himself a champion on pay-per-view, headlining. And he says he's ready for anybody, but I want to know what you guys think about his path moving forward. Is Tank going to take real challenges, or do you see more cherry picks in his future? He says he might be staying with Mayweather. I want to know what your thoughts are about all that, because he's 27, man. He's not getting any younger, and it's weird. We have a lot of people who are actively mixing it up in his weight classes, and he's somehow going around fighting lesser competition while getting high-profile coverage. What are your thoughts on that, Nopal?
No, actually, no, I don't see him taking bigger competition. This is just a big shit show for the Mayweathers. You know what I mean? Just like his career was once he, became that money Mayweather. They're just looking for the big money fights, and that's all they're going to try to do. You know what I mean? In my opinion, they're not going to take any risks. And, if it works for them, let them do it. They're just trying to make money, and that's about it. But they do a pretty good. I gotta say, man, they do a pretty good job, of making these fights kind of exciting. I know this dance partner Rolly wasn't just any normal dance partner, but what they were able to squeeze out of all the juice they were able to squeeze out of this one, man, it's impressive, and it shows you that there's other fighters that can do the same thing. They just losing great opportunities to do this sort of thing. And
Yeah, I hear you, man. George, what do you think, brother?
Yeah, you know what? I agree with that, man. Unfortunately, we're gonna see Tank finishing his career with TMT. I see it. I don't see anything any different. I think he's just like Jamal, he's satisfied where he's at. Him selling the fight, but obviously we know who sold this fight. It was Rolly. I mean, they sold out the Barclays. And of course it was the excitement, Tank Davis being there, Rolly selling the fight, making it seem like he had a really close chance. And, people believed he did have a puncher's chance. But I just don't see him, unfortunately, fighting anybody that we really want to see. I honestly think the only fight that I think that will happen will be the Ryan Garcia fight. I think TMT will do everything in their power to try to get that fight signed, but I just don't see Ryan going through with it. I know he tweeted the next day, "Let me handle business. We can have this fight in December." But I'm sorry.
Go ahead, bro.
And you seen Ryan in the crowd too. He was yelling at Ellerby fuck Golden Boy. I'll make this fight happen. I will make this fight happen. So I don't know how serious he is. When you're not around your promoter, you got a couple shots in you. You grow your beer balls or whatever, And I feel like Ryan was growing his beer balls out in the crowd, yelling at Allerby, saying that he wants him next. But it's unfortunate, man. I don't really think we're going to see Tank fighting the people we want to see. I wouldn't even be surprised if they actually make that rematch with Rolly, because you got Rolly running his mouth again, saying he want all the rounds. And then, and maybe spectators and journalists and some of us didn't see him winning every single round, but most of us had him winning most of the rounds. So, I mean, there's that what if factor. I was really shocked once those 30 seconds happened in the 6th round. I thought, you know what, hey, the over 6 round is going to happen. So whoever bet on the over 6, over 6 has a chance to win no matter who wins. But I just don't think we're going to see him fighting anybody that we're looking forward to.
No, I hear that too. And I guess that's a great point. I think Ryan Garcia could be that perfect, not real step up in competition, but a high profile fight. And then Nando and JC here are in agreement that PBC's got the jabronis on tap. And I agree with that too. I just think, like, who else could they bust out? Like when they busted out like Barrios, I was just like, oh man, then Raleigh, he kind of became a name because we knew who he was ahead of time. On top of that, the fight was supposed to be made, didn't happen. So I don't know if they could pull something like that off again, but I am personally getting tired of seeing these types of fights with Tank Davis. There's absolutely no reason that he shouldn't be mixing it up with top competition. Although I am happy for him. I feel like he's I don't know. I feel like deep down he's a nice kid. He's a believer. You can see that he's got blessed on his neck tattoo. He thanked God first thing he did. I really like Calvin Ford and what he's doing with this community. I think he's a great coach in general. I like his dynamic with Tank. So I am rooting for him, but I want to see a little more. So that's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, I wanted to add something. We've seen the Mayweather classical blueprint strategy to a career is basically what you do is you just keep fighting people that pose no risk. And, you're going to have your guys like Ryan Garcia. You're going to have your Teofimo Lopez's. You're going to have your Haneys. And then you're going to have your Lomachenkos, who eventually will probably all face each other. We already seen Loma already fought Teofimo. Now we just need the other two to kind of fight each other, and vice versa. There's going to be like a bunch of fights. And what happens is when these guys start fighting each other, because it's a higher risk fighting each other, you start seeing kinks in the armor, and all you do is meanwhile, Tank Davis gets to sitting on the sidelines and, pick each one of these guys apart, their whole game plans and all that. And he's just collecting data. Meanwhile, these guys eventually fight. This guy will only decide to fight these guys once he sees weaknesses or once these guys all take L's. And by that time, these guys don't have the negotiating power anymore to ask for like a 50-50 versus Tank. And so the fights, that's when you'll see, Mayweather Promotions jumping all over to get a fight with these guys once that they feel like the fight's easy, So basically, the fight's going to be won outside of the ring, whether it's with the negotiations or anything like that, And if you wait long enough, the other guys are going to end up catching an L, because yes, these other guys are putting themselves in danger. Look at young Haney. We thought he was all bullshit. You know what I mean? But
yeah, absolutely.
He's going to Australia, and he's if you ask me, he's got a 60% chance of losing because of the circumstances. You know what I mean? Even if we know he don't got big knockout power. So if he don't knock this dude out, there's a big possibility that even if he wins about 8 rounds, if he makes it 8 rounds to 4, them guys might call it a draw, or they might just let Kambosos win it, squeak it out. You know what I mean? Because he is in this country, and the crowd's going to be on his side, so it's going to be hard for them not to give it to Kambosos. And what I'm saying is that he's putting himself in risk of catching an L. And once that happens, then it's easier to catch another L. And guess who's going to come trying to get a fight right after that? Of course, Tank's going to want to fight.
Hey, that's a great point, because, right, you look at Mayweather's career. I'm not saying that he didn't do anything great, but that's what it seemed like. He waited. It seemed like he waited for most of these guys to get a little bit older, beat each other up. Unfortunately, Paul Williams, motorcycle injury, but Paul Williams went up to 54. I remember he was supposed to fight actually Canelo, and that's when he got that. That's when he went paralyzed. He got paralyzed. But And it's not like Tank isn't talented enough. Like Tank is really talented. I think he can compete with any of those guys in the top at 135. You know, I think if they were to follow what the fans want, what fights should be lined up, like I could see, you know, I could see him and George Kambosos in a great unification fight, and Devin Haney. And you're right, Devin Haney. I think if you see like the generation is starting to change now, like some of these younger guys are taking these risks, and they're showing that it's okay to take a loss. And you know what? I think Canelo's loss against Bivol is it's like a blessing in disguise, right? Like he's showing, you know, hey, I got 2 losses. I'm still at the top of my game. You know what? I took the chance. So what? I lost. Like I'm gonna bounce right back. Maybe that's what these younger guys will see is that exact same thing. They see these great guys taking challenges that you know the past generation didn't do, and you know they could take those chances, man. And I think what Haney going to Australia, if he loses, I think it just shows his toughness. It shows that he's not afraid to take that L. He's going into Georgia's territory, so maybe this is something these guys are willing to do now. So I think it's a good thing that what Haney's doing. But again, back to Tank, it's not like Tank can't compete. Like Tank he can compete with any of these guys easily, and we want to see him fight obviously the best.
Exactly. I want to give a shout out to Maestro in the house. Saludos, mis camaradas. Thanks for joining us, brother. It's good to see you here. Y'all need to check out Maestro if you don't know about him. I'm sure that you do. If you're listening to us, I'm sure you're listening to him as well. And then Nando here says, HBO never had a month like Top Rank ESPN in June. Dude, yeah, you know what? We got some good stuff coming up. That's for damn sure. And then we're going to get into it right now. JC's already calling Kambosos is going to win. Nopal's already given us a little bit of a preview, but we're going down under to Australia for undisputed 135 pounds, Kambosos versus Haney, man. And there's a lot of dynamics that are going on. It's fight week, you know, so as of as of yesterday, we know that officially Bill Haney's visa has been officially denied. So it looks like there's going to be no last minute Bill Haney flying in, right? So that is a factor that I thought was pretty interesting, and I just kind of wanted to share it with you guys. You know, Devin Haney's going to go over to Australia and try to take care of business on his own without his lead coach, without his second, Ben Davison, and they're bringing in Yoel Judah, coach of Zab Judah, father of Zab Judah. Great interview on Fight Hype. It's about a week old, but he basically lays out the game plan for how they're going to handle this fight, what he expects out of Devin Haney. And, man, I'll tell you what, I'm actually looking forward to this fight. And there's a lot of factors going on. And Nopal, you touched on it a little bit. There are factors in this fight that we need to consider. And, you know, sometimes people consider factors to be excuses, you know, but when you start looking at things like, and you know, and Kambosos was talking some shit ahead of time about these factors, making them sound like they were going to be excuses, such as his father or the jet lag. And Kambosos is over here saying, like, I don't want to hear any excuses. Hey, I go travel all the time. Like, this is nothing new for me, which is also a fair point. And so, Nopal, I want to know, like, in the lead up, man, so you think that there are certain factors that are going to affect Devin Haney's performance. Is that right?
Yeah, because first of all, it ain't his country, and he's not used to that sort of environment. So that's a big factor right there. Other factor, his dad's not going to be in his corner. So that's one of his safe spots, is having his dad by his corner. I know that, you know, it might not, in reality, it might not be the best for him because, you know, previously people have complained that his dad doesn't know that much. But his dad's always been humble enough to bring in outside help to mitigate the situation. So, you know, I believe there is factors, you know, but and with the judging and all that, that's going to be a big factor too, because if the fight is close, guess who it's going to? It's going straight to Kambosos. And, you know, those are probably the factors that I meant, man.
Yeah, man. And I want to give a shout out to Brian, the boxing historian 206. Check him out. You can catch him on the streams. I think I've seen him cast on his channel. It's good to see you, Brian. It's been a while since I've seen you on your channel, I think, man. But you can catch him everywhere. He's also on Aftermath with D-Style Boxing quite often. So he gives a shout out to everybody in the chat. And Nato here says that Combo's rocking that new Jack City Color Me Bad 90s bad boy style. Well, let's take a look and see what that looks like, you know. Because I'll tell you, he was trying to pull it off at the press conference. If you all haven't seen this press conference, man, I'll tell you, it's fucking hilarious. Some mind games are going on. Kambosos was starting to talk some shit. I felt like Haney was trying to make a good account of himself and be a polite young man. And then Kambosos comes out of nowhere, starts talking shit about how Haney's a rat, a snitch, an informant, all because Haney sold out his countryman, Teofimo Lopez, by texting Kambosos ahead of Kambosos' fight against Teofimo Lopez, telling Kambosos, hey, Teofimo's in the hooker lounge. Hey, he's having problems with his wife. And he's sitting there basically ratting out Haney and saying, and now you're going to get it from Teofimo when you fly back home. So these are more mind games from Kambosos. I've seen his mind games before. He actually used that information against Teofimo Lopez in their press conferences when he was saying things like, oh, everyone's left you. Like to me, I thought he was kind of clearly sneak dissing the fact that his Teofimo's wife had just left him. And so he's here again trying to get in the head of Devin Haney. And I want to know what you think, George. Like you caught the press conference. What do you think about mind games ahead of a fight? And how do you think the mind games are playing out in this particular fight?
I mean, it's mind games has always been a part of boxing, right? I mean, as far as back, we can go back to Muhammad Ali, to Mike Tyson. I mean, the list goes on and on with the mind games that a lot of these guys use. And Haney being a younger guy, you could see, and George is actually, I feel like Kambosos is pretty good with it. He's pretty sharp. I mean, you've seen how he was with Teofimo, sharp and witty. Same thing here with this one. I think he went a little personal, calling him a rat or a snitch. But he also, in the same breath, said, you know what, let's get Devin's and Haney's dad over here, which was a little condescending because he's like, because I don't want no excuses. So I thought that was pretty funny. The press conference was good. I mean, right at the start of George Kambosos coming out to Many Men on 50 Cent, that was pretty awesome. I mean, this is what you want to see, right? These young guys taking these chances. Even though Haney wasn't really his first choice, George went on this tour around. He went to the Tank fight. He went to Haney's fight. You've seen him on Joe Rogan. You've seen him on all these other shows and just making a name for himself, especially coming off a win like a Teofimo. And again, Haney wasn't really his first choice. He went after Lomachenko, which Haney isn't a bad second choice. I think when they were talking about it, I'd rather have seen the Haney fight first when this was being talked about. But the mind games are definitely there. Haney was quick with it too. You can't just say that George Kambosos won the. I'm seeing it now. Everybody's starting to score press conferences. 10-7, 10-9. Like I think this was a swing round because they both, were pretty quick with it. But it's fight week, man. I mean, I'm excited about it. And again, this is what you want to see from these young guys taking chances. This isn't in Devin Haney's, backyard. I mean, not just in his backyard, but it's not in the U.S. Like he went across the pond to Australia 2 weeks out. I mean, I know we heard he was talking about a month to prepare, but I think 2 weeks is still even good enough. So again, I think this is a really close fight. I'm leaning with George on this one.
Hey, I just wanted to ask, were the mind games meant for Haney or for us? Because I'm definitely disappointed with Haney doing all that talking, calling the dude up and telling him this dude's at the stripper lounge and all that. His wife left him. You know what I mean? Like, what's up with that, man? Is there a reason why you wanted Kambosos to win that much? Was it because that's an easier fight for you, Haney?
That's a good question.
I think that we can all agree that it is, right? I mean, why would you be more happy about it? I mean, could Kambosos command
up, man?
Exactly, like Kambosos isn't a bigger star than Teofimo was after Teofimo beat Loma. Like that would have been a huge fight. So I mean, Kambosos winning, I think, and let's be honest, like I don't remember anybody calling Kambosos to win that fight against Teofimo, right? He was a pretty decent underdog. It was quite a surprise. Like I think the odds were like close to, I want to say they were like close to like 10-1 at the time, if I remember correctly. It was a big surprise for everybody that Kambosos pulled it off. And yeah, man, Haney did what he did. I would not be surprised if he did it with the blessing of his father, some strategic mind games to maybe help even out the odds a little bit going into that fight. And we all saw that video of Devin Haney celebrating the decision of Kambosos beating Teofimo Lopez. Pretty interesting dynamics, but now they got the fight. And, the mind games are interesting. Like, I think it's funny, first off, like when Kambosos does it, like I kind of find it entertaining, but I also think it's a little bit too personal sometimes. And I've heard, and I have to agree with this, Kambosos sitting there going like, "Oh, you think you're a gangster? You ain't no gangster." And it's like, well, and I've heard this and I agree. Like, I don't think that Haney's ever really tried to come off as a gangster. Like, to me, I thought that was a little too over the top. Haney decided not to go there with it, but like, in my opinion, I think that was a little bit of a reach. To me, I think Haney in general is kind of a respectful young man who sometimes has to act a certain way, in my opinion, because he feels pressured to. Like, I don't think he's a bad young man. I think he's kind of respectful. Like, he didn't want to go there. You could tell he was like, "Hey, I'm happy to be here. I have respect for people." And then Kambosos just decided to start popping off right away. I want to give a shout out to Jimbo, great guy. You can catch him around the streams, man. I like hearing him on H Money's channel or wherever he goes, man. He always gives great opinions. One of our brothers from the UK. Thanks for joining us, man. And then the other thing too is, like, I got to say, as far as like Haney's concerned, yeah, Bill Haney is not there, but he's got one hell of an entourage around him. When they were doing the face-off, you could hear, I don't know if it was Yoel, I don't know who it was, but you can hear some guys talking like, man, he's got people that are definitely up in his corner and are there to do the job on Kambosos. They were jawing, talking some shit. They're confident. They're there to take care of some business. And I'm kind of happy with what's going on for Haney, man. He's got his entourage. Did you guys hear the John that was going on in the middle of this face-off?
Yeah, he was saying he's scared. He's scared.
He's scared. Look at that little guy. Get in there. Get in there. Yeah, like, man, I like the energy, man. It was good shit, and I think Haney could use a little bit of that. Like, I don't think he's scared, but I don't think he'd necessarily prefer to be in this kind of situation where he's got to talk shit, be in like these face-off type positions, but I'm going to give a shout out here to the Shoe Shine Boxing, and let's get into the actual breakdown of this particular fight. We've talked about the factors or excuses, however you want to call it, but there are some factors going into this fight. But now I want to talk about the fight itself. Haney is still a favorite, almost a 2-1 favorite. Kambosos is a plus 150 underdog. So still a fairly tight fight, especially compared to a lot of fights that we've seen recently. And this is for undisputed. So I want to know what you guys think about this fight in particular. You guys have given us a little bit of a preview, but I want an official prediction and any other thoughts that you might have about how this fight's going to go down this weekend for undisputed at 135 pounds. No ball. What do you think, brother?
Man, I'm going to just predict a draw, bro, because that's a safe one for me. I think it's going to be a draw. I know that Haney hardly ever loses rounds, but something tells me, that, it's going to be pretty even. So, yeah, that's my prediction right there, man.
All right. Well, there you go, man. No ball with a draw. I haven't heard a draw prediction in a while, dude. I like it. George, what do you think, man?
I'm kind of surprised Nopal is going with a draw, but I mean, it's fair, man, because it truly is, to me, it is a 50-50 fight. But I just feel like Kambosos has everything going for him, not just him being in Australia with the judges. We saw what happened with Pacquiao Horn. Some people felt different about that, but I know we've been messaging each other like over the last few days, and I'm sticking to my prediction. I'm saying it's going to be a razor close fight. I'm picking George in the 11th round. I feel like he can get it done. This is where we seen heavy Devin hurt a little bit later on in his fights, especially later on after about the 9th round. But Kambosos is as prime and as ready as anybody, and this is what you want to see from a guy that just stunned the world against Teofimo. He's dedicated. He's serious. He's not taking this fight lightly, and he respects Haney. But I just feel that George is just at the right time. This is the right time for him. And if Haney, and in my message I did put, in the same breath that people are saying that, oh well, Devin Haney didn't have his dad, they're fighting in Australia. With the excuses, I also want the same people that are quick with the excuses to also give the props when Haney does win, or if Haney does win, and not to say, hey, you know what, we told you guys so. Like, this is truly a 50-50 fight. So I think whoever wins, praises and props. But you're asking for my prediction, and I'm going with Kambosos.
Very nice, thank you, George. And OJ22 is here. He says, "What's up, fellas? Thanks for being here, man." And the Shoe Shine, you can catch him on Monday nights with Drew Evo on the Shoe Shine, man. A great channel. We're friends with these guys, and he says that Kambosos better not let Haney dictate pace and get in the rhythm. Hey, man, that's a good call. And then El Chido Boxeo A-Rod says that he thinks Haney's taking this because he's hungry enough and has been chasing the titles. No doubt about that, man. It seems like Haney has been wanting to chase the titleists. There's no doubt about it. And hey, he did make the choice to go over there. Did make the choice to take the same terms as Loma. Did make the choice to go over there without his father. And you know what? I'm hyped for this fight too, man. I really am. And then Dave also says that Haney can frustrate fighters and make them lose rounds. But here, Kambosos is a younger version of Linares. Interesting take. And then Nando here says that Kambosos almost got robbed in New York City. Can't preemptively go after the Aussies. Neutral judges, I think. Well, I don't know too much about the judges, but as far as what I think about this particular fight, you know, I really encourage everybody to go listen to what Yoel Judah had to say about their game plan. He pretty much said exactly how they were anticipating this fight would go. He said that Kambosos is going to be marching forward on the front foot, except that Haney's not going to be there. He's going to be stepping on the sides, and then that's going to frustrate Kambosos as he's getting tagged. So that inevitably is going to make Kambosos start backing up, and then that's when Haney's going to take over the fight. And he says that that's going to start happening around like the 5th, 6th round, something like that, you know, and then after that, it's going to be all Haney, according to Yoel Judah, that as long as Haney has his legs underneath him, they got the fight. And he says that Haney's sitting down on his shots a little bit more and he's got power. He's packing, according to Yoel. And you know what? I cannot wait to hear this corner work, you know, because you can hear Yoel say shit like, oh, hit him with the boom, boom, then come over the top with the AO. I love his corner work with Zab Judah, man. I love going back and watching those fights. Some of my favorites are against Mayweather, against Baldomir. And Yoel Judah, he seems sharp. I mean, I know he's kind of come out from nowhere, but I mean, he's very lucid. He's not like Floyd Sr. or anything. You can hear him talk like he's still a master of the game, you know, and it's nice to see the Judah's back in boxing. I mean, they haven't really gone anywhere, you know what I mean? So I expect this fight to go kind of like the way you were saying, George. Like, I do think that Haney will make a good account of himself, you know, and I think that there's going to be certain expectations of him. And I think that we will start seeing early if this is going Haney's way. Like, Haney's not going to be able to walk down George Kambosos. I think he's going to do what he does well, which is fight off the back foot, be defensive minded, be a counter puncher. Will the pressure get to Haney? I think that it will. You know, I think that if Haney comes off with the win, I am going to be thoroughly impressed. Yes, he's the 2-1 favorite, but I mean, I think that Kambosos is going to win this fight. I also see a late knockout win for Kambosos, but you know, part of me just thinks that it's just like everything's just adding up to an upset here. That's how I feel about this fight. I feel like if it were different circumstances, or maybe Haney was a little bit more seasoned or had better things going on for him, I think that this fight could possibly be closer to a draw, like Nopal said, or maybe even Haney winning a split decision. But I think right now, I think everything lines up for Kambosos winning this fight, and that's what I have to say about it. Anybody got any final thoughts on this fight before we move on?
Hey, so both of you guys got stoppage. Haney losing by stoppage?
I think so. I think that Haney.
Damn.
Hey, this is just my opinion. You know, I don't think Haney likes getting hit too much, and I think that there could be some frustration in Haney's corner because Yoel's going to be really pushing in a way that Haney is not used to being pushed. Like when you hear Bill Haney in the corner, usually he's trying to like settle the nerves of his son and just kind of be like that nice, steady, calm temperament to let you know everything's cool. But he's going to be dealing with a very energized corner who's going to tell him what he needs to be doing, which I do like out of corners. But I think it's going to rattle Haney a little bit. Like, you know, like I said, if Haney wins this fight, I will be thoroughly impressed. Although, you know, Haney continues to impress me with every fight. Like, you know, I think a little bit more and more of him after each of his performances. But with this one, I just see Haney in the deep water struggling. That's what I see. So I wouldn't be surprised if it went to decision. But I mean, if it was up to me, like, you know, to make a decision, I would probably say like a very late round KO. And what would start being like maybe a little bit of an ugly fight towards the end, with a real hostile crowd and a hostile environment, you know, and just so much friction and anticipation and energy going on. Like, I just don't see Haney being able to rise to the occasion in this one.
Yeah, and then, you know, and then to add to that too, Chicano, like we've seen Kambosos face adversity. Like, I mean, you know, not to say that Haney will not face adversity because he's that skilled and he's that good of a defensive fighter, but we've seen when he got hurt, like he looked lost. And that's the only reason why I think that it will be a late, you know, like 11 rounds. And I don't know. And then, I think maybe in George's mind as well is he doesn't want it to go to the scorecards if it's a close fight, because, people are going to say, oh, well, he got the hometown cooking. He got the nod because he was in Australia. So I think he's going to want to take that into his hands. And we've seen what Kambosos can do in a 12-round fight, especially what he did against Lopez. Like, Lopez had him down, late. And he still fought all the way through to 12 rounds. And I think that would be the difference, is like the toughness and the adversity that Kambosos has faced over Haney.
Man, that's a great call. And the other thing, too, that I wanted to mention was that, Yoel said, hey, we're there to win rounds. We're there to win all the rounds. We're going to win them, and when a coach says, like, we're going to win the rounds, like, to me, that means, like, hey, he's not going to just, dance and skate by with eking out the round. Like, I think that the mentality is that they need to go there and earn the rounds, and I just don't know if Haney can just bring that kind of pressure to Kambosos to just be sealing rounds like that and just to be so ready to go. And you know what? Like, I do think the jet lag might affect him a little bit. Like, he's a young man and he's athletic, but like, he arrived a little bit later than I would have liked. Like I said, man, it's just a lot of these circumstances which you have to take into account, and we've done this before, like, we think about things like age or jet lag or wear and tear or weight drainage. Like, I'm just saying, like, all these circumstances to me are just leading all this into an upset. And I think, according to my sports book, the odds have closed a little bit. Now, I know that could be because more money's starting to come in on Kambosos, but also it could be because of factors too. You know what I mean? All right, man. Let's get into it. We got another exciting fight coming up, and we're going to discuss Inoue versus. Oh, actually, sorry. You know what? I jumped ahead. Actually, first off, we're going to get to Fulton versus Roman. Now, this fight is coming up this weekend, and I'm looking forward to it, man. Like, we had the opportunity on D-Style Boxing to interview Danny Roman. Very nice, respectable guy. And Fulton, man, who is one hell of a fighter. This is a super bantamweight world championship, a good fight. Looking forward to this one. It kind of snuck up on me. I don't really recall a press conference of theirs at all. But I did know this fight was coming up, and now that it's here, I want to know what you guys think. Nopal, what do you think, man? Who do you have winning this fight?
I haven't really looked too much into this fight, but I don't know, man. George, what do you think, man?
You know what? I was going to kick it to George too, because I was in there thinking, like, I haven't had a chance to like break down this fight and analyze this fight. But that's why we got somebody like George here, who's going to take care of some business for us, and tell us what he thinks, and give us a beautiful breakdown like he does. Go ahead, George.
Best way I can. I'll try, but this is, I think, the second fight that Fulton has been in where there was really no press conference. There was, or a push or a buzz for it, because there was the Fulton and Figueroa, which was a freaking great fight. Me and Julian were mentioning about it too, back when that fight was being made, that there was no buzz. We don't know why. I think it was a unification. But Danny Roman, he fought MJ. He's the other killer at that division that people want to see him fight. And Fulton and MJ are the only ones that hold the belts at that division. So Roman went split decision against MJ, which is a good showing, regardless of him having not knockouts. These guys really don't knock each other, have too much knockout power, or you don't see too many knockouts coming from this division, which is fine because the skills are high. You see skills, and like they say, skills pay the bills. And in this one, Fulton coming off a Figueroa win. I'm gonna lean with Fulton a little bit, but I think it's gonna be just another fight, just like the Figueroa fight, where it was really close. It was split down the middle, where you had half people thinking Figueroa won, half people thought Fulton won. I was on the half of Fulton's side. I thought Fulton did good work. You seen him do some really good inside stuff, and that's kind of like Roman's wheelhouse is fighting on the inside. So it's gonna be a good fight. It upsets me, yes, that it did not get the press conference or get the recognition that it should, because it is a good fight, and these guys at the lower division sometimes don't get a big buzz unless your name is Bam or Chocolatito or Estrada or Nonito and Inoue. But this is a good fight as well too, and I'm not complaining. Whoever wins, but I'm going with my gut on this one. I'm actually going to go with Fulton, like I said.
Great breakdown, and I'll just agree with George what he said. I think that this is a good fight. And, Danny Roman does deserve his respect. He's a former unified champion of the division. He's already been to the top of the mountain. And like you said, George, he did lose a split decision to MJ. I do think that the right guy won that fight. But Roman is incredibly seasoned, and he's going to have his own game plan. And Dave here says that Fulton does not like Mexican pressure fighters. And Roman could do both, box and pressure. And that's the truth, man. He's very clinical. And he's such a nice guy. I could see why that makes him clinical, because he's not in there just to like tear somebody off. Like, you could tell he's like a thinker, and he does what he needs to do. And then Nando here says that Roman looked really good in his last fight. Yes, he did. And he's got some chocolatito in him. Interesting. So, Nopal, you got any further thoughts on this now that we've broken it down a little bit more?
Nah, man. I'm just gonna sit back and enjoy, man. I'm ready for this fight, though.
I'm ready for it too, man. It's going to be a fun one. And, this is, like I said, it's one that snuck up on us, and it's a great fight. So if you guys don't watch the little weights too much, and I've been guilty in the past, this is a good one, man. And
I think it's the only fight Saturday too, right? Because the other fights is Sunday, and then I think the Inoue and Nonito's a Monday or a Tuesday.
Exactly.
Oh,
so we have boxing spread out a little bit throughout, man. And we're going to get into that next, because you know what? We don't really know when we're going to do Alchida. You guys know us. We just show up on whatever day most of us.
Hey, so wait. The whatchamacallit fights on Monday? I mean on Sunday? The one in Australia.
Yeah.
Sunday?
That's a Sunday.
Around what time?
Sheesh, I'm gonna have to look that up. Do you know Chicano?
We'll look it up, no Paul. Quit tripping, dude.
What network, bro? What network?
Top Rank.
Come on, no Paul. Come on, man. We're gonna hook you up with information. Don't worry, brother. But yeah, man, I don't even know what time it's at. I can't even recall. I remember the Horn Pacquiao fight. I remember it feeling like it was early, kind of like midday, kind of like a UK fight, if I remember. So it's probably around that time. And then the Shoeshine here says that at least it's free too, unlike the lousy PBC pay-per-views. That's a good call.
Absolutely.
So we're going to go to this bantamweight fight, because like I said, we don't know if we're going to have another El Chile before this fight. And we're going to take a look at Naoya Inoue versus Nonito Donaire, the rematch. This fight's going on. Looking forward to this one. Inoue is a -600 favorite, and Donaire is a +400 underdog. So the odds are fairly wide. This is kind of like, around that like Tank, Romero, Fury, White type odds. But still a good fight. Inoue is hot. A lot of people have him on the pound for pound list. Nonito Donaire is what I would consider to be probably one of the greatest fighters of his generation. Definitely in my mind, a future Hall of Famer. So I have a lot of respect for him, and he happens to be one hell of a nice guy. Nopal, do you have any thoughts on this one, or should we just kick it to George?
Yeah, man, I'm rooting for Nonito to pull this off, but I think that Inoue just has so much momentum going, man, and he has the advantage. He won the other one. Of course, he had an eye socket or whatever that was messed up, but I think he's gonna take this one too. I got Inoue pulling this off, and Nonito's giving us some great fights, so no shame there. Whatever happens, man.
That's right. And George, what do you think, brother?
I mean, the longevity of Nonito is crazy, man. I mean, his buzz back in the day against Darchinian, when Darchinian was a monster, like catapulted his career. And from then on, like, he was known for his knockouts, his left hook, from Arce to, man, there's so many knockouts that he's done. And he's still impressing, up to today, like even up until his last fight. But I feel like Donaire's little streak will come to an end. But in a close fight, I think Inoue is the guy at the moment. People have him in the top 3. I have him in the top 3 as well, in the pound for pound list. But it's going to be a close fight. I think Inoue is going to be more prepared in this rematch than in the first fight. Because in the first fight, I think he was prepared as could be. But I think the type of fighter that Inoue is, he's really good, smart fighter. He boxes great behind the jab. He's good at, being in and out. He's good with distance. I think he will pick up on the distance a little earlier this time around. But I think the odds do, at least in my mind, I feel like the odds do reflect on how I think the fight will be. But I'm going with Inoue on this one. I love Donaire. Him and his wife, Rachel, have a pretty cool YouTube channel. Like I sometimes will catch it at work in the middle of the night because I guess it's like Philippine hours. Their hours are different compared to ours. But I've always liked Donaire. I respect Donaire. I think he's a great fighter. He'll go down as a top 10 great little fighter in my book. But just Inoue's time. Inoue got this one.
And I agree with that. I really do like Nonito Donaire. He's like I mentioned, I think that he's definitely an all-time great as far as like the lower weight classes go. I remember when he was coming up, and this was like 10 years ago. I mean, the longevity that this guy's had is just quite impressive, and he was so good back in the day. You know what I mean? And just a Filipino flash. You know what I mean? He truly was. And I had an opportunity to meet him once. It was during the Judah versus Khan fight, and I was in Vegas, and he was just walking around in the arena, and nobody really scoped him out, but I did. And I went up to him, and super friendly guy, took a picture with me. And it's like Nando here says, he's from the Bay Area. I even told him, I was like, hey, I'm from the Bay Area. And he was like, yeah, all right, that's what's up. Super nice dude, very humble. And he's humble in general, in his last fight where he, you could catch him at the press conference translating for his opponent because there was nobody else that could speak Tagalog right there, and he seems like such a nice dude. His wife seems like a nice lady as well. And Donaire's had like a really interesting career later on, like, during this Muhammad Ali trophy tournament. It was pretty interesting, man. Like if you go watch it, like he got lucky like twice. Like some guy got injured and couldn't fight, so he fought a fill-in, beat him, right? Got further than he should have. And then he fought another guy, and the guy's back got thrown out in the middle of the fight. And then he went on to fight Inoue to lose, right? But I remember thinking like, wow, this is pretty interesting how far he got when he shouldn't have, and we know what happened in that fight. But I do think there might be and you guys can laugh, like, who knows, there's a lot of spirituality going on with this Nonito Donaire. He's all about the archangels and God. And, you never know. Sometimes, we might just end up in a reality where anything can happen. I do think that Nonito Donaire maybe could put it all together, but that would just be like a divine intervention, in my opinion. I think that if we are just in a reality, right, where things are going to play out the way that they do, I think I see Nonito Donaire losing this fight, probably going to get put down but he's really going to go out on his shield like a true warrior. Nonito Donaire is super fan friendly, and he's going to go there to try to bring it, but he's an old master. But sometimes you can only continue on for so long, especially at those lower weight classes. And if you're talking about a top 10 pound for pound fighter, and in a way, I just see more of the same. But I could see some exciting moments early.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's that left hook is always going to be there for Donaire, and he cracked his eye socket. So I think Inoue might be a little worried about it, but again, I just feel like the preparation for Inoue will probably just will keep him prepared or help him prepared better for this rematch.
And Dave here says that Donaire says he cracked the Inoue code immediately after losing. Hey, that's interesting, man. I do believe that Nonito thinks he can win. There's a lot of mutual respect between these two. They're always shaking hands, always talking to each other, even though they don't necessarily speak the same language. So, you know what? Like I said, I'm preparing myself to possibly see a miracle. I would like that. But I mean, I'm also a realist. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what's in the cards for everybody. And then Dave also says that for Nonito, this is his Triple G versus Canelo 3 fight. He can walk away from the sport, win or lose. Yes, he can. I don't think there's really any need for Nonito to continue on after this. It's really up to him. And then OJ22 says that Donaire was on a hell of a run about 10 years ago. Yep. After the loss to the Axeman, I thought he was done, but he put together another great run. Extremely impressive. Hard to root against him. Yeah, man, I don't really see any like natural dislike for Donaire anywhere. I think he's universally liked by everybody. And that generation is retiring, man. Like, he's 38, 39. Like, I'm just impressed with him in general. So, I mean, if this is the last time that we see him, it will have been an honor to see Nonito Donaire fight for all these years. Like, I was watching him when I was in college, man, and having a whole different life, with different circumstances going on. So, he's given us a lot of great nights of entertainment. You know what I mean?
Was that the single Chicano life?
No, I had a good girl at the time. You know what I mean? I was tied up most of my college days. I had a good woman though. And, it was my San Jose days, 408 days.
Oh, shit.
It was cool, man. It was cool. I got no complaints there. You know what I mean? But no, not single Chicano days. I was, but I had a good woman. You know what I mean?
Hey.
Cooked and cleaned and. Well, I'm not gonna get any further than that. You know, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any
Oh,
bad
man.
memories, just good memories. You know, I was
Yeah,
gonna get
watch
into.
out, man.
I didn't
You're
mean
sounding
to
like
bring
a
that up.
sexist right now, man.
I didn't mean to bring that up.
Oh, no, you can. But I was just gonna get like how good she was at other things too. You know what I mean?
Oh
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. So that's just a full
Earmuffs.
package. In the long run, she got a little bitter, and then she left. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but hey, man, it all works out the way it was supposed to. I had a great run. You know, we're getting a little sidetracked here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we're gonna keep talking about the bantam weights because we have a rescore that we're gonna cover. Carlos Zarate versus Lupe Pintor. So these are also bantam weights from the late 70s. All right. You're looking at Carlos Zarate, who was a legend at the time, very popular, one of Mexico's heroes. Okay. He was a KO specialist. Okay. Going into this fight, he was 54-1 with 53 KOs by knockout. So he had the highest percentage at the time and historically. So he was currently holding the record going into this fight of a 96% KO average with over 50 fights. Okay. And his one loss comes to Wilfredo Gomez when he moved up to super bantamweight. And we all know Wilfredo Gomez from his fight with Salvador Sanchez. And if you're a historian, I guess you know him from other fights too. But, we're talking about fights that are around 40 years ago. So he went back down to fight what was one of his stablemates, Lupe Pintor. Now, Lupe Pintor, some people kind of know about him. He's also a Mexican great. People call him a Mexican great, but he was a stablemate of Zarate. So these two were going to get it on. So after Carlos Zarate loses, he goes back down to his regular weight class to defend a handful of times and then goes into this Lupe Pintor fight. And that's a little bit of the context for you, man. It was an interesting fight, 15-rounder in the 70s, so scoring was a little bit different back then. But let's get into it. George, how'd you have this fight, man, and how'd you like it?
As far as liking it, I loved it, man. And this was in the 80s, right? You have guys that were adults or young adults in the 80s claim that the 80s was the best time for boxing, just like how you have us younger guys in the 90s that were teens, young adults that said the 90s was the best era of boxing. Shit, man, I wish I was around in the 80s just as much as I was around the 90s to be able to remember some of these good fights. And this was one of those good fights because you saw high level skill. That's what I feel like. It was a high level. These guys had gas tanks on them all the way to the 15th round, which was absolutely crazy. Close fight, really close fight. I think I had maybe like 6 or 7 swing rounds. I had like 5, 6, 7, 11, 12, 14, and 13, like a swing rounds. Pintor won. That was the official scoring. I thought the knockdown for Zarate would have made the difference. I scored an 8-7 for Pintor, man. I thought it was a really close fight. It could have easily been a draw. And I know in the comments you read, like I said, when I watch these fights, if I haven't seen them, I most of the time will not go into the comments to try to read what people are saying. So after the fight was over, I wanted to look to see what people said. And they said the same thing, really close fight. A lot of people thought Zarate won. Some people thought Pintor won. I mean, it was just that close of a fight that those swing rounds could have easily went to either one of the guys and could have been a draw. But as far as it being called a robbery with a close fight like that, even with the knockdown, you couldn't call this a robbery, but I had Zarate winning.
All right. Thank you so much. So George has Zarate winning this fight in his own mind, but a ton of swing rounds and not a robbery. Nopal, what do you think about this fight, brother?
It was a great fight. Just like George, I had a bunch of swing rounds myself. First one, I don't think anybody did much. So, of course, that's a swing round. Rounds 8 and 9, I had them a swing round. Round 12, I had it a swing. 13, I had it a swing. And 15, I thought that was kind of a swing round too. So, it looked to me like Zarate being the champ. I mean, he was a little careful in there. And we know Pintor's a lot shorter. So, a little bit shorter. So he needs more effort to get on the inside. Whereas Zarate has a little bit of that reach. So he can tag him with his jab. And, so I had round 1, again, that was a swing. Round 2, I gave that one to Pintor. Round 3, I gave that to Zarate. Round 4, of course, that was the knockdown. That was a 10-8. Round 5, I gave that to Zarate. Round 6 to Pintor. Round 7 to Zarate. 8 and 9 swing. 10 to Pintor. 11. I gave that to Zarate. 12 was a swing. 13 was a swing. 14, I gave that to Pintor. And then the last round, I gave it a swing. So I ended up with the score of 146 to 144 for Zarate. And, I thought that Pintor, did as much as he could trying to get on the inside, but I don't think that he did enough to beat the champ. So, I had Pintor winning. Zarate winning.
Zarate winning and not enough to beat the champ. So do you classify this one as a robbery, Nopal?
I do classify it as a robbery because I don't think Pintor did enough to beat the champ. Of course, I was also not too impressed with the effort that Zarate put in. I thought that he could have did a little more, but I do classify it as a robbery because I think it was kind of clear that Zarate won this.
All right. Thank you very much, Nopal. And OJ22 here says that he loves when we do the rewind on these older fights. He's always watching them, and the docs about these fights. YouTube has a lot too. Well, we appreciate them, man, and we really like it too, dude. And we know we have a silent listenership base that comes just to listen to these. And, man, we've really appreciated having you all along the way, man. And we've learned a lot too. Sometimes when I'm giving you guys all this information, we weren't really there for a lot of these fights, unless they were like, maybe 10 to 15 years ago. So for these older fights, we're getting context ourselves, and sometimes this leads to us going to watch other fights of theirs, and just getting more context and appreciating the history of so many good fights, And so thank you so much, Nopal, for that one. And then as far as what I have to say about this fight, like I had this fight a draw. I thought this fight was pretty interesting. I enjoyed watching it. A lot of interesting dynamics. You could tell like that these guys were seemingly familiar with each other. Like that didn't surprise me when I heard it. To me, it looked like Zarate was allowing Pintor, and like to be fair to anybody who's listening, like it's not like I had any knowledge on Zarate's style, except for that he's a KO artist, or Pintor style. This is the first time I've seen either of them fight. From what I saw, though, it seemed like the dynamic was that Lupe Pintor was a guy who liked kind of being on the front foot, liked being aggressive, but also liked having his opponent come into him. So kind of like Canelo's fight style a little bit as far as the footwork goes. Like, maybe like, a few years ago where, he would want somebody coming into him, but he could also apply like that pressure moving forward. I wish I had a better example, but that's how I could describe it. And then, but Zarate also kind of had that kind of footwork too, where it was weird. Like he would allow himself to go on the back foot until his power dictated that, no, I'm going to go on the front foot now. But sometimes it would be some really good exchanges, it would lead to like a phone booth type fight. But I found that Zarate was getting the advantage on as far as taking the position when he really wanted it. And then Lupe Pintor would allow that. Like he wouldn't hold his ground and say, okay, well, I'm going to show you that I'm the guy pushing forward. Like he definitely respected Zarate's power. I gave Zarate rounds 1, 4 with a knockdown, of course, 5, 8, 11, and 12. And then I gave Pintor rounds 2, 3, 7, 9, 10, and 14. Now, because this was like back in the day, I didn't have any problem doing some 10-10 type rounds. I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to mark some of these just draw type rounds. And so as far as like straight up 10-10 rounds, I said that rounds 6, 13, and 15 were draws. And then, there were a ton of swing rounds I had too. Like I think you could do, and you guys were mentioning a lot of these rounds too. This fight was kind of close in general. And I had rounds 1, 5, 7, 8, and 14 to be swing rounds. So if you add the draw rounds and the swing rounds, there were 8 rounds that I think that were up to interpretation or up for grabs. And I think up for grabs would be a good way of putting it. No, Paul, I agree with you. Like, I felt like neither guy was doing enough in some of these rounds. Like to me, it didn't really feel like a high profile championship fight with high stakes. Now, you could hear that crowd, man. They were excited to be there. It was like a hot Mexican crowd, Mexico versus Mexico. And anytime there'd be just a little of something, man, you could hear that buzz. And these people were ready to cheer and ready to get into a fight. But I felt like the exchanges for bantamweights was a little bit too far and few between. There was a lot of like footwork and posturing. But like I was expecting to see a little bit more action for a bantamweight fight. I mean, these are the little guys. And the crowd ended up booing towards the end. And I could see why a little bit. I was expecting a little bit more action out of these two. Like, I don't know if I would necessarily ever go back and watch this fight for entertainment purposes. But I kind of agree with Nopal. I mean, especially if this is the 70s, and we've done research, and it, back in the day, especially like in the 70s and 80s, like you really had to take it from the champion. If you have a long-standing champion like Zarate, like I found it kind of surprising that they give it to Pintor, to be honest with you. I was surprised. But as far as like scoring itself, like say that these were just two guys fighting and I heard a score of Pintor winning this fight, like I think I would consider that to be fair. Like I didn't necessarily think that this was a robbery. I do tend to favor the champion, but like I said, I didn't necessarily see enough from either of these guys. And just as a frame of reference, thank you, Nando. He says that he appreciates the breakdowns. Zarate was disgusted with this decision afterwards, and he subsequently retired. So this guy who was a number one pound for pound before he went up to fight Wilfredo Gomez, came back down to defended a handful of times, then lost to Pintor. He retired at the age of 29, came back like 5 years later, had a string of wins and then some losses, and then called it quits again. But another factor that he had was that he said in, I think it was a Ring Magazine interview, and this was before this fight, that he was having trouble getting up for training camps, like that he just didn't have that passion anymore, and he was starting to feel it. So the timing also could have been appropriate for that too. He just said, like, I just don't have what it takes to just kind of really grind anymore. Like, I don't feel that passion like I used to, which was great that he could be honest for himself, So the great Carlos Zarate called it quits at 29, a KO specialist who probably, maybe you could say, got robbed. Maybe like the other guy didn't deserve it. I wouldn't call it like a blatant robbery myself. So I would classify this one as not a robbery. But it is interesting to see such a high profile fighter at the time who was highly respected on that pound for pound list retire in disgust about what happened. But I mean, there was also that other factor of him just not having that passion anymore. You know what I mean? Does anybody have any final thoughts on this fight or either fighter?
None.
All right. Well, we can. Nopal, you got anything on that, man?
No, you summed it up pretty good, Chicano. I just wanted to say, though, that we invite the audience. If you guys ever want to rescore one of these fights, go ahead and hand in your scorecards. We announce these fights like a week before we do them, and you guys are all cordially invited to either hand in your scorecards or be featured in this segment with us.
I do want to add something really quick while you guys were breaking down the fight. I actually looked up the times for the Haney and Kambosos. It is on the 4th, and it gave you. So I found it on Sports News. If anybody gets a chance to take a look at that, but it shows Eastern time 7 p.m. and the main event should be 12 a.m. Eastern, June 4th. So it'll be like your typical time, I guess. From what it looks like, but Australia is obviously June 5th, I guess, just the way their difference is. So in Australia, theirs will be 9 a.m.
All right, man.
Ours will be at night.
We appreciate the information. Yeah, it was fun to go back and watch this fight, and you can see the old. Well, he still looks old. I mean, even though we saw Mills Lane more like in the 90s and shit, but still bald as hell. Mills Lane, I thought he did a really good job of just, what. I didn't really like Mills Lane too much towards the very end of his career, but man, I thought he was a really good ref. When I go back and see him refereeing fights, like he really does try to stay out of it. He tries to yell corrections instead of getting like involved in the fighter's business. Like he really tries to let the fighters fight. He has really good timing as far as like when to break up a hold. Like if somebody else is working or he thinks that they might work it out, he'll allow them to work it out. So shout out to Mills Lane, who still looked old as hell. And it's funny because all these photos are from like, this fight was in Vegas. I don't know if it's just because like these photos look like they're from the fucking like 60s, but they're more like late 70s, man. It's hilarious how old school these photos look.
Black and white and shit.
That's what I'm saying, man. I couldn't find any like color photos. I don't know if this is like Mexico press media, you know what I mean? But it was just all like these black and white photos,
Like Mills Lane said, he's fair, but he's firm.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And here's a little article about Pintor upsets Zarate, and in this little article right here, they do mention that it was a little bit controversial. But speaking of controversial, like Nopal said, man, we encourage you guys to go and take a look at some of these fights because we are wrapping this thing up. We are literally almost done here. That was the last old school fight. A lot of these fights are a little bit more recent, I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. We're almost done. So we have 3 left, Diaz versus Malignaggi. And I'm only bringing this up because it's kind of become like a relevant issue because people are trying to reframe what happened with that fight all of a sudden. I didn't think we needed to, but if we need to go back and address it, we will. you know, and then we also have Golovkin versus Tavarianchenko, and then Sergio Martinez versus Martin Murray. George, you know, thank you so much for recommending that last one. And Nopal, it's your turn now, brother. You're up. So what do you think, man? Which one should we take a look at next?
Let's go Golovkin, Chenko versus
All right, man. We're
Tavarianchenko.
gonna go Gennady Golovkin versus Sergei Devarianchenko at 160. We're gonna see if Triple G really is just deserving of only having one loss on his record to the great Canelo Alvarez, or if maybe there should be other losses on his record. When we did the Jacobs versus Golovkin rescore, a couple people had Jacobs winning, but nobody really classified it as a robbery. But I think a lot of people actually called this fight a robbery from what I remember. Like, I remember a lot of people thinking like, oh, dude, Tavarianchenko, he won that fight. What do you guys remember about it?
Man, what I remember is what's his name about to knock out Gennady with the body shot and the ref stepping in there on some weird shit. That's what I remember. And I think that's a big reason why people think it was a robbery, because there was, for some reason, it seemed like the ref didn't want Triple G to, lose. So it looked kind of, it was definitely controversial in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's everybody's answer, no problem, for sure. That I don't remember what round it was, but that was the start of it, man. That was the start of what people thought Golovkin lost. I watched this fight once, and it was, of course, at work, so I was on my phone as much as I could. But what I saw, I did think Tavarianchenko pulled it off, and he was robbed of a possible knock, of a win there. So, it'd be good to go back to see how this goes. Sometimes our minds change when we sit down and break down a fight and how we score it. So, I'm excited for this one.
Me too, man. And contrary to popular belief, I am a Golovkin fan. I was rooting for him in this fight, and I think I was a little bit favorable towards him, to be honest with you, with my scoring. So I thought it was not a robbery at the time, but I think subconsciously I was thinking, I think Tavarianchenko maybe did pull it off. So I need to go and take a look for myself to see if this was indeed a robbery. We do know that Golovkin did knock down Tavarianchenko early, right? So, that counts for something. And people tend to say that Golovkin wasn't really himself. I think, you can hear Eddie Hearn alluding to that a little bit. And we have a fight to go on, to assess afterwards. So this isn't Triple G's last fight. He actually had a fight after this, of course, in Japan. So we know how he did there, right? So, this isn't like the most recent Golovkin, but we'll have a chance to see whether this was like a Golovkin that we're used to seeing, or if it's the same old Golovkin, or, if it's possibly a Golovkin that's just not who we ordinarily see in the ring, because maybe he was sick. I don't know. We're going to take a look at this fight. All right, man. Well, for the crew, we are signing off. We appreciate you all joining us. See you next week.